What's going on? I want to welcome you from half court for today. I am your host, Sean Murphy, alongside my man, Mr. Galaxy, Mr. Worldwide, Jeff Hiafrady. Jeff, how you doing, guy?
So I'm no longer in my mansion anymore, if you couldn't tell.
No.
I'm now in outer space. So I transcend Earth with the takes I put out. So this is new for me.
Dude, I gotta get on whatever plan you're on, whatever
Yeah.
bag you're getting. We gotta figure that out. You went to space, like after having a mansion. I mean, you're sitting pretty.
I'm getting tight with Elon. I'm making things happen. I'm talking about the Pistons. Things are going well for me, Sean. You know, things are going well for me.
Dude, bless Father Elon, I guess. Shoot, my gosh. But anyway, Jeff, we're not here to talk about your simp daddy Elon. We're here to talk about the Detroit Pistons, James Wiseman, Jalen Duren, Marvin Bagley, all the beefy big boys in the post. Jeff, we have had quite an evolving conversation about all of these guys throughout the season. And at one point, we thought we knew who our starting franchise center was at the beginning of this season. And then the trade deadline happened. And now everything's completely all thrown into the waste. James Wiseman, Jeff, has been making an impact. And now, you know, as in the final 15 or so games that the Pistons are playing, the most important thing for them is the play of James Wiseman, Jalen Duren, and Marvin Bagley. Specifically, can those guys play together? Can those guys coexist? Now, the good news, Jeff, is James Wiseman and Jalen Duren have both shown a lot of really good things. In fact, over the last 5 games, James Wiseman has had 21 points, 16 points, 16 points, and 18 points. Like all shooting over 50% from the field each night. You know, half of these games are double-digit rebound games. Wiseman's shown a lot of flashes of why he was drafted number 2 overall. And Jalen Duren is showing why he's arguably the steal of the draft.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's Marvin Bagley. And Jeff, I would make the venture to say that I don't think Marvin's been the most comfortable in this new role. So what have been your thoughts and what comes to mind as you watch these guys play together?
Well, it's always tough because, you know, especially in a rebuild, you can't fall in love with players. I remember when the Pistons first got Marvin Bagley, it was like, oh, wow, this is what, you know, can happen if you get Cade, a lob threat. And then you draft Jaden Ivey and you draft Jalen Duren. You're like, wait, now we got Duren, Bagley, more guys that can, you know, especially lob threats for Ivey and Cade Cunningham. And then here comes Wiseman, right? Like things change very quickly in a rebuild, which I love. I mean, Troy's been doing that. He's consistently adding competition. And again, the better players will just flush, or the worst players will flush themselves out. So to me, it's a great strategy. I mean, Marvin Bagley, the deal he got anyway, it's a tradable contract. I mean, 3 years, $33 million. I like Bagley because it was really the first player that when Troy really stole. Like when we look back at that trade deadline and we're like, Marvin Bagley, and he played well and everything was all great, and then here we are a year later and it's trending towards a completely different roster. So if anything, it's a great thing because Troy's found better big men. He's found guys like Wiseman who are better defensively, but he's also more consistent offensively. Mm-hmm. And then you have Jalen Duren, who's just been an absolute animal at the age of 19. So they're in a good position. And I want to give credit too, because this is on Pistons Powered. Aaron Keller-Strast wrote this article, and it was detailing the two big experiment that Dwayne Casey's tried, you know, closing down, you know, getting Wiseman and trying these things out. And he had some stats in here that I thought were interesting. And people have already known, if you watch these games, you watch the first game that Wiseman and Bagley played together, they were destroyed on the boards. I mean, quite frankly, You watch that game, it was 58 to 42. But even more than that, look at the defensive net rating. So Wiseman and Bagley have played 67 minutes together and put up a total of minus 25.4 net rating with a defensive rating of 131.2. And an offensive rating of 105.8, both horrible. So, and then you go to Jalen Duren.
Bagley,
hold on, it gets funny. Bagley and Jalen Duren have just played 38 minutes together, and it's even worse. They have an 81.2 offensive rating, 119.3 defensive rating, and a negative 38.1 net rating overall. So if anything, Sean, this tells us that Duren, Wiseman, yes. Duren, Bagley, Wiseman, Bagley, No. At least it hasn't worked out that way. So, again, love Marvin Bagley as a human being. Just the fit right now with now the addition of Wiseman, it's gotten complicated, Sean.
But, Jeff, what happened? Marvin Bagley was playing good basketball as much as 2 weeks ago. We were talking about Marvin Bagley.
He's always hurt. He's always hurt, too. And that's the concern as well with Bagley. Like, the guy, even now coming back from injury, he's injured again. Like,
yeah.
So it's not even just on the court. It's availability. There's a lot of things with Marvin Bagley, and that's why I think eventually he'll be the odd one out.
Yeah, I think the other thing as well, Jeff, and this is something we were talking about before we recorded, there's something about if the too big situation is going to work, because the situation we always point to with the two bigs that's the success is in Cleveland, right?
Yep.
I mean, Milwaukee does it as well, but the difference is they have Giannis, so that's just an anomaly. But if you're going after what Cleveland's doing, the reason why it works in Cleveland is because not only are both guys, elite rim protectors, immaculate defensive players, guys who can crash the boards and control the glass, but Evan Mobley also has the prospect of stretching the floor and a guy that can handle the basketball as well.
Yeah.
The reason why it works is because you're not sacrificing the perimeter play with Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen on the court. Whereas when you've had both Marvin Bagley and say Wiseman or say Duren in the game together at the same time, they weren't physically dominating teams because Bagley was still trying to play on the perimeter. And in fact, that game that you talked about where they were out-rebounded 58-42, that was against the Pacers, and they were without Benedict Mathurin, Tyrese Halliburton. Jeff, they didn't have a guy in the lineup that night that was over 6'9".
Just effort.
Over 6'9".
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Jalen Duren was the only guy that night to get the double-digit rebounds. Like, that's the thing with Wiseman. Like, there's just moments where, I think with Marvin Bagley, it's just the catch-22 of there's clearly something there, but he can't stay healthy enough in order to actually see that potential, and the missing skill sets just make it that much harder too. But with James Wiseman, it's like you can see why he was drafted number 2 overall. You could see the glimpses of why he's so good. He just needs more minutes on the court, right? Like there's just these nights where it's like, man, you could have done a lot more.
Yeah, and although Wiseman hasn't been the most healthiest, he also hasn't gotten an opportunity at all. Like, Bagley hasn't been healthy, but when he's been healthy, he's gotten an opportunity. Even Sacramento, he came off the bench. Wiseman couldn't even get minutes with the Warriors. Like, he's getting the most minutes he's ever had during the stretch he's been with the Pistons. So you'll learn more. I like the untapped potential of Wiseman a lot more because, again, like the things you brought up with Milwaukee or Cleveland, Wiseman's got a little bit of that skill set. We've seen him handle the ball a little more. He's spacing out, taking threes, and it looks good.
Yeah.
So, to me, Wiseman's got a little more untapped potential, but Bagley can carve a rollout somewhere. I just think with the Pistons, if you like Duren and Wiseman, that pitch for Bagley, Sean, it's getting a little harder.
Yeah,
it really
for sure.
is.
Now, Jeff, here's another piece of it that I think is really interesting. When the James Wiseman trade went down, and we brought him into Detroit, one of the conversations that we had was like, all right, well, he's not going to be starting over Jalen Duren. Jeff, he's starting over Jalen Duren. Like, every night. Like, it is like a consistent theme, especially, like, particularly to close this season, that James Wiseman is starting over Jalen Duren. For all intents and purposes, going into next year, James Wiseman could be starting over Jalen Duren. What are your thoughts? Is it something that bothers you at all? And what have been your thoughts of Duren's play since he's come back into the lineup?
So, my thoughts on Wiseman starting, if anything, it's credit to him because the fact that he can come in here and press Dwayne and the coaching staff this much to where they trust him. And again, people forget Duren was injured. So he came back from his injury and then kind of came off the bench and now he's just stayed there. So it's a little bit of both. I don't think this is.
There were the reports at the beginning, remember, that like Wiseman was going to come to Detroit and start, but we also didn't know, Duren was injured at the time. We didn't know if that meant, like permanently, but It seems like for this season it is.
Yeah, and again, this season I don't mind. I think we know what we have in Duren, to be honest with you. Know what we have now. He can get much better, but it's not like Duren, the experience he can get off the bench just playing minutes. Wiseman, we need to give him all the free run, especially in a season where you don't really care if they win these games or not. So I don't hate Wiseman starting, especially, I mean, the time's running out with Wiseman's contract. I mean, Duren, you have for the next handful of years, he'll be fine. And if he's good enough, he'll start. But Wiseman, I got to know right now. So I don't have a problem with him starting. If anything, it's credit to him and how hard he's worked since coming to Detroit and impressing the coaching staff.
Well, and in fairness as well, I think there's something to be said about Detroit having, like you said, there's the pressure to see what they have in James Wiseman, but also there's the pressure in getting him caught back up in the terms of all the reps that this guy's missed. I mean, you talk about, with Jalen Duren, even with the injuries he's had, even with the time, even with the, time he's missed this season, he's very much still on an upward trajectory, and whatever whatever happens to him the rest of this season won't take away from the proof that he showed that this guy, at the very minimum, is going to be a starting caliber center in this league for years to come. Like no matter what, Jalen Duren has shown that this season, right? Mm-hmm. So I think if you're Detroit, you still can put him out there for 20, 25 minutes a night. You can still allow him to, come off the bench. And I think, let's be honest, I think, I think with Jalen Duren, there are a lot of things that we like, but I think, with the fact that he is 19, with the fact, that he is a rookie and he is, the youngest player in the league, there are inherent limitations to his game, specifically offensively, that I think Wiseman is just so naturally gifted already as a post scorer. And then you add in the physical intangibles, how big Wiseman is, and if he can develop on the defensive end, I think that's why you're also seeing him start right now, is because, well, Wiseman already has some of these natural things that Duren is still working on and has shown glimpses of doing. But, I mean, Wiseman just also has the freak tools as well, right?
Yeah. And I would never rule out, those guys playing together in the future as well. So there's a lot of different things Detroit can go. The rest of the season, though, I want this to happen like this. Number one, competition is important. So the fact that Jalen Duren and Wiseman are competing for the starting spot is awesome for me, because you don't ever want to feel like Duren already just has his spot locked up immediately. So I like this. It's like, all right, Duren, if we believe in you, you believe in yourself, you can get to where we expect you to go, you'll start anyway. You'll be fine. Right now, it's Wiseman's time to stretch to end the season. So it'll be interesting. But I think you were spot on, Sean. At the end of the day, Jalen Duren, we know what he's going to be. He's trending that way. I have no idea what Wiseman is. I know a little more now seeing him play, but I got to keep seeing him play. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, 100%. Jeff, you ready for me to throw a monkey wrench in this whole thing?
Oh, gosh. Let's go.
What happens if they get Vic?
Oh. Yeah.
Doesn't that get way more complicated?
That's a good problem to have, though.
Isn't it? It really is.
It's an amazing problem to have.
It really is, because initially I'm like, I think I have an answer, but the more I think about it, the truth is I have no idea. Like that would just completely throw a wrench in everything.
Just keep the best. If you have 3 or 4 bigs, keep the 2 best.
Right.
Or keep 3.
I think beef stew's probably okay, though. I think we can agree on that, right?
Yeah, beef stew's here. Yes.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, by the time this video has been out, there's the interview that I did with James Edwards III where we talked about beef stew a bit, and James talks about why he thinks that as long as Troy Weaver's going to be here, Isaiah Stewart's going to be here. And
part of that, too, kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier, guys being able to play with other guys. Isaiah Stewart's been one of the only guys that can play with any big and still play well. So we're figuring out Bagley playing with Duren, Stewart has immediately fit. He's, slid right into that role. So I love Isaiah Stewart. Just flexibility. The guy just brings you.
Well, also just notice, you also kind of work, inherently you kind of worry in the back of your head, are these guys going to gel? Are these guys going to get along? Like the first guy you saw James Wiseman being buddy with on the bench, Isaiah Stewart. Yeah. Jalen Duren, right when he came in, who's the guy that he became boys with? Isaiah Stewart. You know what I mean? It's just like, no matter what, it's just cool to see that he's the guy that those guys can lean on, or that the guys on this team can lean on, right?
What's their nickname? Duren and Isaiah Stewart?
Oh man,
I forgot. We talked about this for like 2 weeks straight, especially on the pod, and now I forgot.
dude, it was it was a nickname that went hard too.
That just shows you the relationship Isaiah Stewart has with his teammates, man. He's amazing.
Oh yeah, absolutely unmatched. But with that, I mean, hey, listen, like that just shows like the monkey wrench that could be thrown with Victor Wembanyama like that. Like, that could completely sidewipe this conversation, which shows, just what we said towards the beginning of this video, how quickly things can change. Like we saw Marvin Bagley 2 weeks ago come back from injury, first 2 or 3 games, like, oh, this guy's on a mission. Then James Wiseman, and then he plays with James Wiseman and Jalen Duren, and then it goes, It's been fun, Marvin.
Yeah, it really has.
But what are your thoughts on the Bagley Wiseman Duren experiment? Do you see it working out? Are you of the opinion, like us and Grant Long, that this probably isn't going to work out? Let me know in the comment section down below. Did you see that, by the way, Jeff? It was literally like right after their first game. It was like right after the Pistons-Pacers game. Grant Long was like, after one game, this isn't going to work. We'll tell you why later.
Grant Long's a pretty smart guy.
Oh, it was so funny.
But he might be honest. And that was after the first game?
Yeah, that was like right after their first game played together. Right after. Yeah, I was like,
I love that, man.
But
he's a treasure.
But you know what is going to work? From Half Court. Because we go to work each and every day, and we put out some great content. You're going to want to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and especially be tuned in for what we have next week. Because, Jeff, we're cooking. We're cooking. We're cooking. So
can't wait.
Can't wait. Be on the lookout. But with that, folks, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you guys next time from Half Court. Be sure you subscribe.